morning and welcome to a second edition of Real Talk. We hope that you've had a great start to your school year. We know we've had a great start. And today we have some special guests for you, so we hope you tune in and get some more helpful information. Miss Miller, how's your start been for a couple of days?
Good. I cannot believe we have over 3,000 students.
Oh my gosh,
We've got a lot going on. A lot of new people need to hear what's going on. So hopefully they heard what was going on with dress code and what we need for them to be dressed like to come to school. The other thing that's really bothering me is attendance, because I'm already seeing some tardies. And so I think we need to maybe address that a little bit.
Right. The tardies can get out of control, as many of you know. I would like to say on a positive note that a ton of our students did an excellent job. And, you know, we did the parking incentive. How do you feel like that went for us?
Well, hopefully the word gets out that we're real serious about tardies, because this year maybe we'll add something else with, you know, taking away parking. But if you had too many tardies, then you weren't allowed to buy parking. So to avoid that problem going into next year, everybody needs to be very careful with their tardies.
Right, because you never know what we may come up with.
Right, we might
at
come
the
up
last
with a
minute.
new rule.
We like surprises.
Yeah. Surprise.
So
okay, so here's the deal with tardies. Teachers are going to have their tardy log, and the students need to sign in, and it's always a good thing to sign in, because, you know, then we can go back and say, well, did you sign in? If not, then we know you're absent. But if they're signed in on the tardy log, then we can account for attendance.
Documentation.
Yeah, so we have to have them sign in on tardy logs. And of course, they get 6 warnings, and after that, then we go right to disciplinary action. So hopefully that doesn't become a bigger attendance issue.
Exactly.
Do you have any attendance issues?
yes, and in the past it's been a problem. So I'd like to touch a little bit more on that. And so we have our first special guest today joining us, and it's our associate principal, Jan Lewis. Come on in and welcome. Welcome to Real Talk. We're so happy you can be here with us today. So can you shed some light for us a little bit and our students about your thoughts on attendance and how that can affect them academically?
Well, the bottom line is, if you're not here, you can't learn. And students have 4 years really of free education, and this is it. After this, it's not free anymore. So we want them here. We want them to take advantage of everything.
That's exactly right. And this also creates lifelong habits of being where you're supposed to be at a job. And
Absolutely. I spent 15 years in manufacturing. And every time I hired a part-time worker that was in high school, I asked them to bring their attendance. And when they had a big attendance issue, I would not hire them. I also never hired anybody that had a GED, because I figured if they wouldn't take advantage of something free, they probably wouldn't show up to work either. And so I never hired, in all that time, for minimum wage jobs, never hired anybody like that.
exactly. And I've also had visits from the military, students who graduated 2 years ago, and they'll say, Miss Petrus, do you remember so-and-so? And they want me to look up their attendance. So it's an issue.
I just filled out a recommendation yesterday for someone. It said, are they timely? Well, that's pretty tricky. When you look down at tardies and attendance, that can really get at you. So we'll be careful with that.
I think we have another guest join us today, and that is Miss Martin. Welcome, Miss Martin. We're so glad you're here. Nice to see you. I know you're
How's
very
everybody?
busy.
Well, a little bit, but never too busy to join in on the talk.
Why don't you tell us, like, the troubles that kids can get in if they're not in regular attendance? It's that 90% rule.
Well, the 90% rule, it's a state law actually. It's not a Miss Martin rule or Miss Lewis rule or an Oak Ridge rule. It's a state law. Students have to be in attendance 90% of the time to get credit for the class. So when you do the math on that, it really only allows for 5 absences per semester in any class before we can and should deny credit.
Any absence.
Any absence, any absence. And
Can you clarify that?
Sure. Because, you know, I deal with a lot of students late in the semester who will come and say, Miss, I got this letter saying I'm losing credit, but I don't understand all these 25 absences are excused. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The state doesn't care if it's excused or not excused. To them, it's just 90% attendance, you got to be there. So, you know, it really...
So doctor's note or HCP note or
you know,
whatever, maybe they're just not here.
If they're just not here. The only absence that doesn't count against a student is if a student has a doctor's visit during the school day but they're in attendance part of the school day. Then,
So in other words, they're here, they've checked in, and at some point in the day, they leave on an early release, yet come back.
right.
Okay.
Yes, in attendance any part of the day, and then at any sort of health care provider visit, those absences don't count against them. The only other thing that we're not going to count against a student is a college visit.
We
There-
like those.
We do like those, absolutely, we support that. And of course, unfortunately, we're going to have students during the school year that might have to miss school for a funeral. Certainly, we take these things into account and we work with families. But really, the main thing to remember is that 90% rule, you got to be here. You just have to be here.
Okay, we want to thank our special guests today, Miss Martin and Miss Lewis, for coming on to our show. So now we want to tell you, what do we do next? When you're absent, you need to come in the front doors or the front entrance of the school and come to the attendance office.
It's not cool if you're not in school, so don't be a fool. At 6:45, bring us your note that your mama wrote. We'll give you the slip. Your AP won't give you lip. It'll get you in class, and the teacher won't chew you up.
We appreciate you clarifying those questions for us. And students, we hope you have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend, and tune in for the next time and next edition of Real Talk.